Hi, Angela, and hi, Big Bump. And Big Bump, if you're a person, hi, and welcome to the world. We don't know if you're there yet. Hi, Fred and Solja. It's been a very, very long time, and please forgive us. You've asked so many questions and told us so many things, and we just haven't replied. And I guess the only reason is it's been a very, very busy winter, and we just didn't get to it. We didn't mean to ignore you one bit. Let me first say, Soldier, I hope you've been comfortable. I know if the bump is still there, that's the hardest time in the world. You just, every night when you go to sleep, you don't know if it's going to happen, and you wake up and you're still all there with the bump and the belly button sticking out, and you just wonder if it's ever going to happen. But hopefully, by the time you get this, it would have happened, and I just wish you all the best. Um, I don't know where to begin except first, Fred, your very kind invitation. It's very sweet of you, and I just hope you realize that it's simply something we can't even think about doing. In the whole time I've known Joe and been married to him, I've been married to him almost 7 years now, the only time off he's ever taken is to meet Grandma. What, about 4 years ago? We went down for about 3 or 4 days. Other than that, sometimes we've gone overnight to the beach, but he simply doesn't take vacations. It's not in the nature of what he does. Being the only person, he works for himself by himself, he simply can't get blocks of time. In fact, this visit to Grandma originally, it was to be 1 year after the last one. We'd hoped for early December, then January, then it got pushed up to March. Now we're hoping for the end of April. The reason being that when there are deadlines, he simply has to fulfill them. He just can't take blocks of time. He has a sister in Fresno whom we've never visited. We have both of us relatives and friends in San Francisco area. We're hoping to take 5 days or maybe a week off for this visit now in late April for Grandma and the others, which is maximum. It's not that Joe is miserable. He's very happy in what he does. He loves what he does and wouldn't have it any other way. But because of what he does, he just can't go anywhere for long periods. I hope you understand. The money really isn't that much of an issue. It's very generous of you to say you would pay our fares. Of course, we wouldn't have let you had we been able to come. That isn't the issue at all. It's simply our way of life. And the way we live does not allow us to take big times away. So it's just something that we cannot do. I'm sorry. Solja, it would be wonderful to meet your family and to see a part of the world that to us is all like a fairy tale very far away. But I don't know how else I can say it. It's just something we can't do. Um, we certainly hope to goodness you're going to be here very soon. Now, you've pretty much committed yourselves, both in the letters Dad gets and I see, and what you've written to us, and from what I hear from Mom, you really are coming. I certainly hope so. You know, it's been, well, if we've been married almost 7 years, it's been just over 7 years since any of us have seen you, Fred. Todd's a grown man, finishing his second year of college. The littlest of all your nieces and nephews are grown-ups. Matt's going to be 2 this summer. And of course, all of us adults are getting old. I'm starting to get a little gray. Uh, you know, it's just been a long time. We miss you. It's just like a remote stranger, and the world has changed so much so rapidly that pretty soon you'll feel like it's not even your home at all. I'm sure you might even feel that now. But we certainly hope you'll be here very soon. Really, truly. Certainly, because of Dad, you know, it's just hard to say a man in his condition. He must be made of iron. We've said that for 15 years, constantly fighting a battle of always overweight. His history of the stroke and the heart conditions, and of course, being a somewhat listless man, you might say. He doesn't have a lot to live for in his daily life. If anything, it's utterly amazing that he's alive. People die all the time 20 years younger than he with similar ailments. So you certainly want to see your dad, and nobody knows. He might live to be 90, but Nobody would be surprised if he died in his sleep one night. It's amazing how he just keeps going. He actually looked very good last week or so when he was down. He had lost the excess poundage. There was a time, again, when it had crept up. Of course, he doesn't tell you in his letters, and uh, you certainly shouldn't let on that you know when you write him because he hasn't told you. But there are times he's been up very heavily and breathed heavily and hard to walk, you know, limping, just all that extra fluid, I suppose, and the pressure on all his blood vessels. But this time he looked much better. He was much more refreshed. He didn't nap during the day. He walked better, moved better. He seemed more alert. Um, so somehow or other, the guy just keeps going, and he seems to do all right. Mom is coming up, gee, not much more than a week from now. It'll be a short visit this time. I guess it's difficult getting a lady to stay with Grandma that satisfies her, and I guess they're getting a lady that isn't really her favorite, so she doesn't want Mom to be gone too long. So I believe her whole stay up here is only about 2.5 weeks. So she'll come here the early part of April for maybe 6 days, and then go up to Tacoma and return after the bar mitzvah, which is the 12th of April. So we will be seeing her a couple times in a row. We'll be going down then soon after she returns to Elsinore. But I'm sure she's in good shape. She continues to work at her newspaper office, which gives her pleasure, and I'm not really worried about her at all. I should, before I tell you anything about what we're doing, answer some of your other questions or talk about the things you've asked about. I've already told you about your invitation, which please forgive me for not having answered right away. I just kind of let it slip. But the other things you've discussed is about the job picture and investments and so on, and we've appreciated the articles you've sent. We are not heavily involved with those concepts, I guess. We tend to be very simple. We have life insurance, and Joe has some kind of deferred mutual fund thing that as a self-employed person, he can put a certain percentage of his income into this, which is deferred taxable income or something. We just don't deal in big money. We're not big money people, but we certainly tend not to go flying off into bizarre things. We don't own one piece of stock of any kind. We're just not involved in anything that relates to gambling or speculating, although I realize many stocks are not that kind of thing at all. They're very secure, but we've had a couple of meetings with our accountant talking about possible investments and uses of our savings, and because of the instability of the times and the way everything is up and down and way down, he just didn't know how to advise us. He said it's just a very bad time to make significant advice, so we've just not done anything. There are government securities and treasury notes or something like that. I don't even know much about it. I'm not an economics person. But there are things which yield higher interest than just plain old savings. There are also long-term savings in the banks that yield more than just plain old savings. I think that I am not, as I say, anyone that knows anything about money matters particularly, but I would just say that the best advice I think I could give you is to don't jump into anything totally, any kind of investment at all. That the thing you'll need most is cash when you return. You will need cash for a car, for rent, for food, and I certainly hope to goodness you turn most of your money into usable cash for your return. I don't know anything about gold mines, so I can't say too much, but I sure wouldn't put money into some deal. You know, there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or if there is, only one guy once in a while finds it. So I would just stay away from those kinds of ventures. It's just my notion. You've asked about the job market and what things cost and so on. I don't know how much information you could gather from that want ad section I sent you. I didn't send you the houses, I don't think, rentals and costs of buying, but it is incredible. I don't know how to express how much things have gone up, except to say that our house, which we bought about 5 years ago at 18.5, um, and that was a very good price then. It could have been 21, it could have been 22 or 3, and been a pretty good buy. Right now, that house in exactly the condition it was when we bought it, in exactly the same place, would easily be 30, maybe 35, possibly more. In the condition it's in now, of course, we've put quite a bit into it, no question. Landscaping, paint, you name it. But it's just would be triple or more. I don't even know. But this is true all over town. The notion of a house from $18,000 to $22,000 is gone. Um, a new house, of course, it's unthinkable. You can't even get a junk house for that. But in an old anything, you've got to think of a minimum of 30 probably. That's a decent middle class neighborhood. That's not a fancy neighborhood. That's decent house. I'm not talking about terribly fancy things. I'm talking about plain old houses. Um, I don't even know if Jack and Lily were in their old house or Ellen and Jack when you left. I guess they were. But if those were 15 to 18 to 20, I don't know Tacoma's market, but I would guess they're over 30 now in the condition they were when they bought them, not to mention what you have to put into a house. Also with high interest rates, we were very lucky to get the state GI loan, which was at 4% interest at that time. Nobody pays what we pay a month. You would expect to pay $300 a month, probably to rent or on mortgage payments for any house you bought. There's no $90 a month deal anymore, or 75 or 130. It would be just a bonanza if you found anything under 200 a month, either rental or buying. That's the way it is. Now, cars, new cars, instead of being 15 or 2,000, they're 3 and 4,000. Simple economy cars, that is. New Volkswagen is 3,000. Um, it's just an expensive place to live now. It's hard to say how you think it is compared to how it is. Um, what used to be a nice income, what used to be comfortable, just isn't anymore. So I would suggest, that you try to have cash. Your concept of a 6-month trip visiting is another thing that you might have to reconsider. That's extraordinary. First of all, I don't know how many people you have to visit, but I don't imagine anybody wants to be a house guest at one place more than a week or two. I mean, you can't stay with someone for 2 months. So I don't know, maybe you have tons and tons of people to see, but a motel for 4 people, there is no $6 and $8 cheapy motel. A cheapy motel for 4 people is probably 16. You'd be lucky if it were 20. A breakfast, 2 eggs and toast, no meat, is probably $1.75. Hamburgers, simple sandwiches are over $1. Coffee's 25 cents a cup, maybe 20. It's just traveling is not going to be cheap either. It's just a lot different than when you left. So you might have to consider a much shorter time of visiting people. It's just going to be expensive. Gas is higher. Renting a car would be high, let alone buying a car. I'm not trying to scare you. I just haven't talked about any of this, and you keep asking and mentioning, about finances and about your proposed plans. So I want you to realize that it's not real easy anymore. Also, I was kind of surprised about the things you said about the unemployed and your notions about, let them eat cake. You're feeling that too bad for them. Why should they drain society or whatever? I don't think you realize who is unemployed and how many. People who have held jobs for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, executives, trained technicians, assembly line workers of every kind, people who have built their own businesses, people who were vice presidents of companies, you name it, they're out of work. Everybody's cut back. Um, these are not beggars. These are people that are like you and me and all the people you've known, that the last thing in the world they'd expect to be is on welfare. But they simply don't have any jobs. They are on welfare, or they're starving, they're selling everything they own. This is real. It's very real. Um, I'm very surprised that you would have that kind of attitude. We are very fortunate that Joe's work keeps coming in. It's a kind of work that keeps going because it's not excess. People have to print annual reports and colleges have to print catalogs, and so he has work. But it could have happened to Joe if he'd been an architect. They don't have work because nobody's building, or an interior designer. They don't have work. Or people in construction, contractors, the very thing you're talking about. These are perfectly decent, hardworking people. They're not trying to sit around and get money off the government, Fred. They simply don't have anything to do. No one will hire them. Lumber's sky high, nobody's building. You should rethink or relearn a little bit about what's going on before you make such judgmental remarks. Um, it's not quite what you think, I guess. On the other hand, perhaps that was very, very harsh. People are eating and living, and most of all the people we know pretty much are at work. But you must realize that there aren't a bunch of people trying to live off the government. These people really are in trouble. Um, I hope I haven't made it sound too gloomy. I'm just trying to balance your picture a little bit. It isn't gloomy. We go to the movies, we go out, we get babysitters. Our friends they invite us over, we eat. So it's not so terrible as all that for most people. I don't even know where to make the balance. Just it's